Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Now, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, for those who've been with us, yesterday and also this morning, welcome back, everyone, here at the Energy Security Hub at the BMW Foundation. For those who are just joining us, I'm looking here in the audience. My name is Ali Aslan, international moderator and journalist. I've had the pleasure of moderating many of the panels yesterday and today, and it's my great pleasure to announce the next panel coming up. It's actually going to be a new format, an innovative format, which I'm very much looking forward to. Very interesting speakers, should be a really good one. And it is my great pleasure to hand over for the New York Times debate, which is going to happen here on this very stage. I'm seeing a packed audience, so clearly great deal of interest from everyone as to how AI and democracy are compatible, or are they? We'll find out. Listening to our foremost speakers. And to kick off this debate, it is my great pleasure to hand over to none other than the president of the New York Times. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stephen Dunbar Johnson.
Thank you. I got it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali, for your kind welcome. As you say, what a packed room. My goodness. It's great to see you all here, and it's also great to see so many familiar faces in the crowd. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the New York Times debate at the BMW Foundation's Energy Security Hub here at the Munich Security Conference. This is a moment where we try to mix a provocative, thought-provoking, and heady cocktail of theatre, but not at the expense of substance. Where you, dear audience, are also an important part of the mix. So I urge you to lean in to the experience over the next 45 minutes or hour. Our mission at the New York Times, through this debate format, which is curated by Debatable and our partners at Kite Insights, is to create space for balanced, nuance, and respectful argumentation where we can disagree well. In an increasingly polarized world where inflammatory and entrenched opinions tend to eclipse other perspectives, we need to enhance our listening muscles and to test our biases that are increasingly reinforced by algorithms. So, as you heard, my name is Stephen Dunbar Johnson, and as President International of the New York Times, I'd like to extend a warm thanks to Heba Agib, Heike Schneeweiss, I'm getting all these, pronouncing these terribly, so I apologize, and Maya Wolfsassen at the BMW Foundation for your great collaboration. I apologize for being brutalizing your names. It is a great pleasure for us to be here, and thank you for hosting us, genuinely. So my role is simple. It's to welcome you to what I'm sure is going to be an invigorating, thought-provoking debate, and to encourage you, as I said earlier, dear audience, to interact and encourage our brave debaters with enthusiastic applause and even whooping when you land, or when they land, a salient point. But I'd now like to introduce the star, for me, my colleague Katrin Benhold, who will steer us through the debate. Katrin, despite her youthful appearance, has worked for the Times, unbelievably, for 22 years, I think. Reporting from over a dozen countries, she was Berlin bureau chief, from where her reporting provided our global readers with deep insights covering a range of subjects, spanning from the far right's infiltration of Germany's security service, on the one hand, and to why Germans love to get naked and drive like maniacs on the Autobahn on the other. As a German citizen, I suspect she wrote that piece with some deep first-hand knowledge. Katrin has frequently hosted the hugely popular New York Times podcast, The Daily, and now hosts The World, which is the new flagship global newsletter of the New York Times. The World is a new initiative that we launched last September. It's a daily newsletter for curious people, you're all curious people, I think, around the world that brings the reader a mix of original analysis and a roundup of the biggest global news stories and a few delightful surprises in video and in text. Katrin regularly writes herself, tapping into her experiences in Europe, but above all, she plays host to her reporting colleagues all around the world to bring our readers particular insights on stories and their experiences in the countries that they report from, frequently through video. So I urge you all, if you haven't signed up to it, to do so. Or to say, Katrin is a rock star, and for those of you who haven't yet signed up, please do, as I said, and I urge you now to give her a very warm round of applause. Katrin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do feel like a rock star now, and I promise nobody will have to get naked today. So the motion today is democracy too slow for the AI race? I'll tell you a little story. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Davos, and I made like a vintage human being, I made a mistake. I ended up in the wrong room, but it was very lucky, because in that room was Yuval Harari, a philosopher, a thinker, author of *Sapiens*. And he gave a talk about humanity and AI. And he had this really interesting framing. He said, think of AI as a new kind of immigration. AI immigrants are going to flood your economies. They're going to take your jobs. They're going to change your culture. They're going to change the language. If your society is okay with that, fine. If not, you need to regulate it now, because in 5 years' time, it's going to be too late. AI is moving incredibly fast. I mean, ChatGPT wasn't even around 4 years ago. The stat that recently really got me was that the money that is being spent currently by the tech industry on building data centers every year is staggering, some $600 billion last year alone. That's the equivalent of the entire US federal highway system, which took 35 years to build. So the tech industry is building a federal highway system every year. These tech guys are not messing around. Come on, democracy, right? But what's the question, the really big question, joking aside, that we are debating tonight? The question is, can this stuff play out and actually work out well for us? Can we regulate AI in a way that protects us and our democracies? Or is AI actually incompatible with democracy? Either because authoritarian regimes are just better at being ruthless about big projects, or because the concentration of wealth and money and power in the hands of just very few is intrinsically incompatible with democracy. It's a big question, very important question for us and the future of our children, but don't despair. We have 6 amazingly smart people in the room to just figure it all out for us. So we've got an hour, and in an hour you're going to walk out of here and hopefully feel enlightened. Will the debaters please make their way to the stage? And I need you to welcome them warmly to get them in the mood. I think you're in the mood. I think you're in the mood. Okay, great. So arguing in favor of the motion, democracy is too slow for AI, for the AI race, we have Parag Khanna, Wendy Chang, and Andrew Perry. Arguing against, we have Arantxa Gonzalez, Dimitri Alperovich, and Claudia Platner. Yeah. Interesting gender distribution. Maybe we'll comment on that later. So let me explain how this is going to work. And just to be clear, you, the audience, are going to actually determine who the winner is. Yeah? You will eventually decide. So you have to listen carefully to each argument. You're not judging, hopefully, on the basis of your preconceived ideas and opinions on the subject, but on the basis of the arguments put forward and on the strength of their persuasive power. Some of these arguments, by the way, may be exaggerated for effect. Our debaters are not necessarily arguing exactly their own opinions. They are defending a specific position. For the sake of the debate, I need to say this to protect them, but also in order to tease out the kind of provocative questions that we're dealing with here. And also, I need you guys to be really noisy. You were good just now, but I need you to be even noisier. Applause and cheering are actively encouraged. We just did one of these in Davos. Yeah. I promise you, in Davos, the New York Times debate was the noisiest and most raucous event of the World Economic Forum. Everybody testified to that. It was fun. And so hopefully we can match that today. So first we'll hear from our debaters one by one. We'll alternate between teams, a pair each time. You will have 3 minutes at a time, no more. We'll have a timer, and we'll be ruthless in cutting it off. I'm German, so, you know. Then we will turn to our jury. They're sat here. And they're the highly esteemed Meredith Whittaker. Meredith, where are you? Meredith, there we go. Kevin Casasamora. There we go. Thomas Ridd. There we go. Jury, yes, clap, give the jury a hand. Now, the jury, like I said, is not here to decide the winner. That's for you guys. The jury is going to give feedback to each debating team, sort of tease out what was good, what was maybe not so good, or where the blind spots were, and maybe help them sharpen their argument for the final round, because then each team is going to nominate one debater, and they're going to go head on in the final showdown, which is going to be so fun. And then you guys, the audience, will get to decide the winner, which is basically by giving them applause and making clear by the noise level who wins. So I want to practice that once, just to make sure that you can do this. The New York Times applaudometer has a good track record. So let me just try this with a sort of random motion. If you believe the US should invade Greenland, okay, that didn't really work. If you believe the US should not be allowed to invade Greenland, yeah, okay, yeah. So that is what you're going for, teams. That is the winning sound. That is what you're going for. Let's get going. So on the for side, can I get the first, Parag. Can I get the first team up? Parag and Arantxa. On the for side, we have Parag. And one thing you need to know about Parag is that when the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, he was there like a shot. And he stole a few pieces of the wall to take back to New York to give to his friends. So this guy is resourceful and ruthless. Just need to know that about him. On the other side, we have Arantxa Gonzalez, and what you need to know about her is that she's done this before. She's done a New York Times debate before, so she was able to feed insider information to her team. So this is going to be spicy. But anyways, without further ado, we've got a 3-minute timer set. Parag, you go first. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a debate about governance. So let me begin with a casual reminder. Not a single human being east of the city of Istanbul cares even remotely what you think about their government. It is also true that not a single human being south of the city of Istanbul cares what anyone north of Istanbul thinks about their government. So to the extent that this debate is taking place not just inside, but outside of this room, on behalf of 75% of humanity, let me assure you that our side has already won rather comfortably. The vast majority of the human population is not interested in democracy for the sake of democracy. They're interested in material improvements in well-being. That is the stuff of governance. To the extent they enjoy a degree of democracy, they would be willing to sacrifice some of it in exchange for better governance. They do not want to be like you. They want to be better versions of themselves. They do not want westernization. They want modernization. They would rather have a stable and progressive technocratic government, one led by experts working together with AI, than a flailing populist democratic system. In fact, so would most Western citizens themselves. 58% of those surveyed by the Pew Research Center would prefer a system of government where experts make decisions rather than elected officials. So even the West is finally exiting this la-la land of liberal mythology by which legitimacy derives only from democratic inputs. But that is neither necessary nor sufficient for good governance, because legitimacy also depends on outputs. And those outputs come in the form of measurable benefits to society: housing, schools, jobs, safety, hospitals, and more. And a good government is already legitimate if it does these things, but it can be more legitimate if it does so effectively with AI. So let me be clear. Harnessing technology to deliver societal benefits is the only race. It is not a race between democracy and authoritarianism. It's about old versus new models of governance. And the best kind of regime to innovate governance in the age of AI is a technocratic government, one that is led by experts, that seeks to maximize welfare, and that constantly collects feedback from the public to improve its performance. And only technocratic states are capable of doing that right now. States such as Singapore, China, and the UAE are miles ahead in using AI in their economies to train workers for the oncoming job apocalypse, for example, and regulating AI as well. So just ask anyone outside of this room in the global majority, and you'll have your answer.
This is not about the North against the South or the East against the West. This is about you, the people. This is about you and your children. And this is not a race. This is not a race. This is, if we frame and we are told that this is a race against China, a race against time, a race so urgent and existential that democracy itself becomes a burden, that rules become a burden, that safety, security become a burden, that you become a burden. That framing is not only wrong, it's dangerous. Because the moment we accept that AI is a race, we have already accepted the conclusion that the only way to stay ahead is to centralize power, to silence dissent, and to move fast at any cost. That logic doesn't protect democracy, doesn't protect you or anyone else outside these walls. It dissolves it. Let's be very clear. AI is, the AI is not a 100-meter sprint. It's a global, interdependent, cumulative field of research. The race metaphor ignores the reality of how innovation actually happens. When we call this an AI race, we imply that speed is the only metric that matters. But in a technology this powerful, a speed without oversight is not an advantage, it's a liability. It's a liability for you. Democracies don't fall behind because they debate. They stay ahead because they can correct. They adapt. They learn from criticism instead of punishing it. The race framing also assumes that authoritarian systems have some form of inherent advantage. History tells us a different story. Open societies have led every major technological revolution of the last century. They allowed disagreement, they allowed creativity, they allowed failure without punishment. These are not weaknesses, these are strategic assets. The real threat is not that democracies are too slow. The real threat is that we panic ourselves into abandoning the very principles that made innovation strong. If we frame this as a race, we will act like racers. Heads down, blinders on, sprinting towards a finishing line that doesn't exist. If we frame it as a shared human challenge, we can act like leaders, thoughtful, coordinated, committed to building a future that is not just technologically advanced, but that it's free, fair, and safe. So please help us in rejecting the race. Let's reject the fear. Let's remember, democracy is not an impediment to innovation.
Time. Thank you. Thank you very much. So yes, you can take your seats. On the foresight, I heard Parag say that outcomes matter more than elections. And legitimacy actually comes from outcomes, not elections. So democracies may be too slow, but it doesn't matter because what we care about is results. Our Ranscha, on the other hand, says democracies might be slow, but they also avoid mistakes, potentially existential debates and sort of, societal apocalyptic mistakes. Over to the next two debaters. I have on the foresight, Wendy Chang. So, and Dimitri, if I may ask you up here as well. So Wendy is not just a China expert, she also has a little art gallery in Berlin, and she's always on the lookout for cool new artists. Good luck with that in Munich at the Security Conference. Yeah. On the against side, we have Dimitri, who is host of a podcast called Geopolitics Decanted, which is basically his excuse to drink a lot of wine and then talk a little bit about geopolitics. And we thought we'd sort of make you feel comfortable by providing you with a glass of wine. So we're going to have a New York Times debate decanted.
Is that an attempt to make me lose?
Well, I think you're used to it. But Wendy, you're the first up. Give him some time to get a little tipsy. 3 minutes. Off you go.
Hello. Democracy is great when it comes to representing different voices to building consensus. Democracy is not so great, however, at moving fast. And the AI race is one that demands speed, scale, and coordinated action. We have a tough job here today on our side, arguing for AI, which I know many of us still have reservations about. And for daring to suggest that democracy could be flawed and uncompetitive. But my job here is to paint a picture of how state-led directive systems, like the one in China, can succeed by moving fast, so we know what we're up against. Now, breaking through in a transformative technology like AI requires not just private sector investment, and lots of it, but also sustained policy support over a long period of time. China's top-down industrial policy has been very effective at doing this. Case in point, their green energy transition. Due to long-term policy support, China now has the world's largest and fastest-growing renewable energy system, providing vast amounts of low-cost electricity for industry and data-intensive sectors. Since AI requires a tremendous amount of electricity, access to cheap energy gives them a competitive edge in the long run. We can contrast that with the US, where green energy goals have suffered due to the shifting goals of successive administrations. Another prominent example of the China model is their electric vehicle sector. Now, I think this audience might know the story particularly well. Since 2009, the Chinese government has poured the equivalent of more than $230 billion into subsidizing its EV industry, creating a massively competitive sector where traditionally there was none. Now, Chinese-made EVs are some of the most advanced products around at the most competitive prices. I know. Many of these same car makers, by the way, are now turning to making humanoid robots. And this is what many consider to be the next frontier in the AI race. There are still dependencies on Western software and chips, to be sure, but they're on the whole advancing fast due to crossover knowledge and existing supply chains. Before long, our markets could be flooded with Chinese-made robots. Robots illustrate an important point about the AI race. It's not only about the most powerful AI models, it's also about transforming their capabilities into applications across different fields. And here's where China's speed, scale, and coordinated action might beat us. Western democracies are still ahead in AI for now, at the leading edge of innovation. But the fast, whole-of-nation, undemocratic approach of China could overwhelm us if we sit on our hands for too long. Thank you very much.
Take it away.
I'm glad that my opponent agrees with us that democracy is winning the AI race. The proposition is democracy is too slow for AI or China has won the AI race. But to argue for one side or the other here, we first have to define what winning means. Some would argue that whoever first achieves this elusive but horribly undefined term AGI, artificial general intelligence, will be the victor. I propose, however, that we use a different and arguably much more important metric for winning, which is when we achieve runaway intelligence or recursive self-improvement. That is when AI starts building itself autonomously with minimal or no human involvement, which is probably a few years away. The reason that is such an important milestone is that we can expect a very steep exponential explosion in AI capabilities whenever that point is reached. Instead of having new models come out every 6 or 4 months, they could come out every second. Imagine the capability that we'll have at that point. And whoever gets there first is likely to be permanently ahead as long as they have sufficient compute capacity to keep feeding this AI beast. I argue that not only has China not won this AI race, but it will lose to the West, who is definitely not too slow for AI. There are 4 main ingredients needed to build frontier AI models: talent, compute, which is advanced chips and data centers, enormous financial capital to procure them, and data. Both China and the United States have plenty of talent, money and data, and the broader West for training models. And no one else in the world comes even close to them. The only major difference is in compute. China is lagging behind in ability to produce advanced chips, largely due to Western export controls on semiconductor manufacturing equipment, like the Dutch ASML, needed to build the most advanced chips. It is also highly constrained in its ability to buy Western chips due to US export controls. Indeed, Chinese companies themselves are regularly complaining that the lack of access to chips is their biggest impediment to advancing AI. The DeepSeek model that made so much news last year was self-admittedly by their staff trained on NVIDIA A100 chips, which they had been able to procure before the US ban on those chips took effect. There are literally trillions of dollars that are being spent today by Western AI companies, the majority of which is going into the acquisition of AI chips. China is nowhere close to matching that level of spend, in large part due to the inability to source that much compute. Indeed, the gap between Western frontier models and Chinese models has grown in the last year. And if the chips control holds, we can expect it to increase even further. Should this trend continue, Western models will achieve runaway intelligence first, making it virtually impossible for China to ever catch up. It will be game over in the AI race, and China will lose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, keep that. Cheers. So what I heard Wendy say, we're toast. China's going to win this. And what I heard Dimitri said is, China doesn't have a chance in hell because they don't have the chips. Interesting. So we have 2 more speakers, the last pair going up. I've got on the 4 side, Andrew Perry. Now, when Andrew was a child, he wanted to be a cricketer, an artist, a novelist, or ideally all 3. Luckily for us, he ended up in the world of energy infrastructure and AI. So you can talk to us about that today. And on the other side, I have Claudia Plattner, who is a mathematician and a German, and has the accent, and the German accent, which confers a certain amount of authority to prove it. So she obviously knows her stuff. Andrew, you go first, 3 minutes.
We talk about winning the AI race. I agree with Arantxa. This race is not a sprint. It's a marathon. And the question of, it's not who's leading right now, it's which system can absorb the shock that's coming. In the 1970s, we broke the post-war industrial social contract. Now advanced AI is going to break the market-driven globalized one that we've lived under since, one that already feels fragile. Thomas Piketty showed that when capital grows faster than the economy, inequality widens until you intervene. For most of the 20th century, roughly 2/3 of income went to labor and 1/3 went to capital. That balance has underpinned democratic stability. Since the 1980s, labor's share has already fallen by around 5 percentage points across Europe and the US. Even that modest shift has had major political consequences. And yet, despite the digital revolution we've been through, human labor, both physical and cognitive, still sits at the center of economic value. AI changes that. AI is capital that substitutes directly for labor. It replaces high-skilled cognitive work and, through robotics, increasingly physical work as well. Let's imagine the shift to come. In 1970, Europe had around 1 million coal miners. Most of these jobs disappeared within 2 decades. The physical consequences lasted a generation. Today, Europe has roughly 8 million professional drivers and vehicle operators. Waymo already operates driverless taxis across US cities and is expanding rapidly. That's not speculative, that's happening. This is just one sector. Research shows the complexity of tasks AI systems can complete has been doubling every 7 months. This will be accelerating substitution of labor, not a gradual change. As AI erodes labor's economic value, wealth will concentrate further in the hands of those who own AI capital, the compute, the models, and infrastructure, as Dimitri just talked about. Managing that shift would require major redistribution, a redefinition of labor's role in society. Is that politically feasible within liberal democratic systems built around wage income, dispersed economic power, and electoral accountability? Do we expect all those tech billionaires, very soon to be trillionaires, to voluntarily engineer a large-scale redistribution of their own wealth? Do we see that happening? Is there much sign of it? Karl Popper argued that democracy's strength is error correction, the removal of bad rulers without bloodshed. But that presumes economic power remains broadly distributed. As that balance erodes, so does the leverage of democratic institutions. If democracies must centralize authority to manage this shock, they risk becoming something fundamentally different, in which case they've already lost. China's centralized authoritarian system can coordinate capital for the long term, can implement redistribution without electoral backlash, and can absorb instability. At this point, you might invoke Friedrich Hayek, who argued in the 40s that central planning cannot cope with complexity and dispersed knowledge. But Hayek wrote in a world where information moved at the speed of paper. China's lifted 800 million people out of poverty in 50 years and has already shown how technology can be used to manage complexity of central planning in a vast country. It's demonstrated an extraordinary administrative capacity.
I think you sound vaguely like Gemini, or, that's great. The robots are here. They're officially here. Yeah, exactly. That was brilliant. I want to give it up for these two. That was brilliant. Oh, no, we're not done. Oh, my God, the German. We have... that was so rude of me. I was so absorbed in the moment. Claudia, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. I am a mathematician and a German. And as such, I'm the technocrat you were talking about. And if I look at the hypothesis, and just the hypothesis, it is democracy too slow for the AI race? I'm going to handle it as a mathematician does. I'm going to disprove the hypothesis by counterexample. So, very simple. Very simple. What's the most successful country in AI right now? Well, it is, arguably, the US. And last time I checked, it was still a democracy. So, theoretically speaking, I could stop right here, but of course, for the sake of argument and for the sake of the debate, I'm going to continue. It was not regulation that has stopped Europe from building like dozens of competitive LLMs. It wasn't. It also wasn't energy that has allowed China, conversely, to come up with DeepSeek. It was indeed engineering ingenuity. So it has to do with, in all cases, with people. People driving, indeed, the innovation and the way forward. So let's come back to this so-called AI race. I'd like to challenge that term in itself. Whatever we call the AI race right now is driven and fueled by, indeed, LLMs. And you know what? That's a bet. This whole bubble is a bet. It's the bet that AI will take on as an operating system. It will take over as an operating system. Enterprise systems are dead. Well, there are arguments for and against. AI is going to do everything. You don't need the rest anymore. Software is gone. Others say it will just become a commodity. And the real value lies in business integration techniques and the composition itself. We'll see. My point is, there are also other parts of AI that we're not even looking at right now, or at least not discussing as we should. Machine learning has very little to do with LLMs. Reinforcement learning, one of the things that actually made DeepSeek possible, is also something where we're not at an end yet. So my point really is, there are other avenues to explore which take a lot less energy, could be at least a partial solution to the fact that AI gets it right statistically speaking, but not every time, so it's not suitable for everything we want to do with it. So that's another thing. So what we're betting on right now is one direction of AI. There could be so many others, and we don't even know. So maybe we're betting on some key success factors which will change over the course of time. And with that being said, just a small little memory for all of you who are as old as I am, remember the .com bubble?
Give it up for Claudia and Andrew. Amazing, brilliant. Oh, sorry, thank you. Yeah, it's getting heated here in the room. Yeah. Amazing. So what I heard Andrew say is that basically we're en route to human labor losing economic power, by extension political power, and therefore, again, we're toast. Claudia was arguing, on the contrary, one sort of crucial ingredient for innovation in AI is actually freedom. Freedom, a free society, the freedom to innovate. China doesn't have that, we do. So, hallelujah, maybe there is a way out. So it's getting close to crunch time. I'd now like to invite our distinguished jury members to join us on stage. Maybe all of you could come up. And we also have you on a tight clock. You will each have your 3 minutes. And just a reminder, you're not deciding the winners, but I would love your feedback on the good stuff, on the blind spots, and on anything that might help these teams to then sharpen their arguments for the final round. Yeah, feel free to come up. Kevin, do you want to go first?
I can go first.
Okay, I see. Well, actually, you're being deprived of 30 seconds. I think you have 2.5 minutes. It's nothing personal.
No, I was actually told that I had 2.5 minutes.
Oh, there we go. Then I was told the wrong thing. 2.5 minutes for each of you.
No, you can't take it back now. Right? So anyway, thank you so much for this wonderful invitation. Look, 3 things. I'm rather surprised that no one has mentioned the pandemic in the course of this discussion.
No, I won't do that.
Because there you have a huge event in the context of which authoritarian systems were supposed to be inherently advantaged, because speed of reaction was a big thing during the onset of the pandemic. And I seem to remember that 6 years ago, there was a lot of hand-wringing in the democracies about the very clear advantage that supposedly a system like China had. Well, 6 years in, I would claim that the picture is far more complex. And I would claim that all things considered, democracies came out looking much better than they looked 6 years ago, and authoritarian systems, including China's, came out looking much worse than we thought at the time. And the reason for that is the ability of democracies to self-correct and to avoid or mitigate at least the probability of catastrophic mistake. Number one. Number two, I think it's been mentioned here in passing that AI will create immense inequality and concentration of power. So one critical question here is, which system is better equipped to deal with the societal reaction that this will inevitably engender? And the jury is still out on that one. My impression is that, generally speaking, democracies have a lower level of tolerance to extreme concentrations of power and wealth. And last, and this is perhaps my most important point, is about the framing. I have, deep problems with the notion that the only thing that matters is the speed of adoption, for a variety of reasons. I mean, I wish that we had
Kevin,
that conversation about speed when social media came along. And not just that, if you're
I also wish you had more time, but you don't.
Let me finish
Okay, you've
if you're
literally
the
got 10
first to
seconds.
reap the benefits, you're also the first to face the costs. So if you're going to make this about speed and speed alone, you're placing a wager that AI will bring more joy than pain. You see,
okay,
speed
you're
wins,
proving
but
that democracy is
speed
too slow.
also kills.
It's too slow. Thank you. Right. Okay. Go for it.
All right, too slow for what? What
Well-
are we actually talking about or doing here? Because I want to start with the frame as well and maybe be a little bit somber. I don't think it's just a fun thought experiment in some ways when we're looking at real attacks on democratic institutions and processes. And the framing here, to me, reeks a bit of the kind of accepted desperation that we see in relationship to the AI narrative. There is something called AI, but how many of you all, if you raised your hands, could define that? Would feel comfortable if I handed you the mic defining that? How about you? Okay, so what are we actually talking about? What is going so fast? All right, what are we talking about when we talk about democracy? Is this electoralism, a very narrow form of collective governance that has been hollowed out in my country by campaign financing and the disciplining of global markets where capital flight disciplines states, not so much popular will? Is that what we mean? So I'm challenging the frame here because I think this is actually a serious conversation, and what it speaks of to me is there's so much anxiety and so much FOMO around this idea of AI, which is nonetheless ill-defined, whose history, starting post-Cold War with the build-out of the ARPANET and infrastructure that was then turned over to a private market that established monopolies on the backs of a platform business model that collected data, grew infrastructures, was able to innovate deep learning approaches that were newly useful because of huge infrastructures, and then were able to spread those to a world that had already, quote unquote, colonized through their platforms and infrastructures, is something very historically contingent and specific. It is not simply the arc of positivist scientific progress. So without actually defining these, I think we're playing in dangerous waters where we're seeding the idea that AI, a very specific concentrated industry that is based on a very specific historically contingent set of factors that is governed, controlled in 2 jurisdictions in the world by entrenched economies of scale with network effects, is somehow synonymous with human and scientific progress, and our job is just to lay down and take it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thomas.
First off, well done, debaters. Very clean and crisp arguments so far. A few questions that I would like you to consider addressing. And some of my co-jurors have already raised very important points. So first off, if we look at algorithms that control our social media feeds or whatever feed you have in mind as a form of artificial intelligence, there's a good argument to be made that is the case. Then really we're not talking about some future effect, but we're already suffering from some of the effects of these advanced technologies. And indeed, it appears that democracies, and really we're looking at one democracy here, the United States, because that's where AI is at the leading edge, and social media as well. The United States is leading the pack and raising this hard question for us. Is winning that race a form of losing that race? By exposing us to the effects of AI, look at the labor markets, computer software developments going out of work, accountants, lawyers coming next. Are these effects the same in China? Are they hitting China on the labor side, labor market side in the same way? Obviously, much bigger manufacturing sector. Interesting question to raise. How about on the political side? Is the political system in China better equipped to handle social media and soon the AI impact? Also a hard question. So really, the question is, what is winning if we only define it as getting to first adoption first? Maybe we should talk about harnessing that technology for the right value system in a way that is future-proof, because that race, obviously, and that's where my framing comment would be, why race? This is not going to be over. Are we stopping using AI technologies after the race is over? Surely not. So this will continue for our entire lifetimes and beyond. So let's stop talking about the race. I think I did it in 2 minutes.
Amazing. Thank you so much to the jurors. Please take your seats, and we will watch the impact of that feedback. I have a couple of things to add, just because, as I mentioned, I was in Davos a few weeks ago, and AI was a very prominent topic, as was the extreme concentration one might say, obscene concentration of wealth very much on display. The two chairmen, and they're men, they're always men, of the World Economic Forum are billionaires now, officially, Larry Fink and Andrew Hoffman. And there are many more billionaires around there. In 1987, the number of billionaires in the world stood at, from memory, 87. I think it was 85. I think it's 85. 1987 was 85 billionaires. Today it's 3,000. We have 3,000 billionaires, and the net worth of these people is exploding. We've got Elon Musk, who's heading to become the first trillionaire. He's at $700 billion already. And I met Ken Rogoff, who, as you know, is not exactly a left-wing radical, but he was sort of expressing his shock at this extreme concentration of wealth, former chief economist of the IMF, and campaigned for Senator, or advised Senator McCain in his presidential race. And Ken was saying that in 2018 he had a call from an early Facebook investor who said, "Can you believe it? There's a company that's now worth $1 trillion." And Ken said, "Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, Apple, $1 trillion, 2018. And this guy said, "Do you think that we'll ever have a company that's worth $2 trillion? And Ken recounted to me, he said, "No, I don't think so. I think we'll regulate it, honestly, because that's just crazy." Of course, a year later, Apple was worth $1 trillion, and today we have NVIDIA, which is worth $4 trillion. So I think it's really worth keeping in mind that the concentration of wealth that some people, including Andrew, that is going to be amplified, is being amplified by AI, is already happening, and in some ways is already undermining democracy, because these people obviously fixing the system. The average, that's another Forbes stat, which I thought was interesting, the average tax rate of billionaires is lower than the average tax rate of Americans. So there you have it. I want to now move into this period where teams have a little word with each other. They can identify one team member who will go into the final round, make their best argument. You guys, before I will give you a chance to talk amongst yourselves, I have you as a captive audience, and I will shamelessly show you a promotional New York Times video, because it's our birthday. For 175 years, we've reported without fear or favor. So enjoy the video, and then we'll take 2 minutes for the teams to decide, and then go into the final round. we'll give them a couple more minutes, or maybe 1 more minute to just, yeah, and you can talk amongst yourselves, what you've learned, you know. It's like, let's dance. Yeah, 3,000 now. Okay. Time is up. We're going for the final showdown. Now, okay, guys, come on. Yeah. Don't be such a German audience. That's it, better. Now, Dimitri is a little bit too tipsy to do this on his own, so he asked for help. So the two are going to pair up and do it together. 1.5 minutes on this side, and then we have Andrew valiantly stepping up on his own to face this team. So can we please have this side up on the podium and Andrew as well, so we have a nice little bit of tension on the stage. You only have 1.5 minutes this time round. Listen carefully, because this is going to clinch victory. You guys are going to have to make up your mind, because after this, I'm going to ask you to make a decision. So we're going to start on the other side this time. It's the against team that starts, and you can start now.
Well, first of all, I'm very glad that our opposing team and members of the jury have already conceded that the West is winning the AI race. I'm glad to take that feedback from them. But we have to address the drawbacks. There's no question that AI will have dramatic consequences and downsides to the labor markets and social media, impact on our democracy, as has virtually every technology we ever invented. Who here, raise your hand please, does not want to see the internet, does not want to use the internet, does not want to use computers, does not want to use cars, does not want to use factories? They've all come with terrific benefits and horrible downsides. But democracies are capable of managing them very well. And if you want to see what authoritarian regimes do when their economies falter, look at what just happened in Iran. Democracies elect new leadership, authoritarian regimes gun down their people in the streets.
In democracies, rich people are taxed. Markets are regulated. In authoritarian regimes, rich people are put to jail or thrown out of the window. In democracies, workers are stakeholders. In autocracies, workers are pieces in a chessboard to win. We don't have to imitate, we have to innovate. We have to invest in research, global talent, build alliances, create rules, and ensure that there is social safety nets. By the way, there are places where this is being done. So who says democracies are too slow to win this race? In this continent, in this country, in Europe, there are rules on artificial intelligence to protect your children, to protect you against pornography and much more. It's been done, and it's been done now. Thank you.
Amazing. Andrew, I gave them 10 more seconds. You're going to get 10 more seconds at the end as well. Go for it.
I'm aware I'm speaking to an audience of sophisticated European Democrats. This isn't about what you would like to see happen or what your values are or the grandstanding that we've seen. It's about the practical reality of what actually will happen, whether you like it or not. So the race has been framed in this room around this race of AGI. Democracy framed that race, not China. So the US has framed the race for AGI. When we talk about race to AI, that's what we mean. It's about trying to get this exponential AGI growth. So yes, and I think democracy will win that race-specific one of like tech innovation in the near term. But the real question, the real thing we're trying to debate here is like, who's going to be able to apply this for wide societal benefit? Who's going to be able to do this across billions of people? Who's going to be able to integrate it into technologies across society? And who's going to be able to manage a society within this massive transformation and this wide inequality that we potentially face? So within that application for wide benefit within a complex world, I think there is zero evidence that actually Western democracies are good at this. I think it's wishful thinking. And I'll leave with one example. So the original driverless train was first created in the UK in the early 60s. We now have the grand total of 2% coverage driverless trains in the UK. China has more than half of all driverless trains on the planet. They didn't need to be first. They didn't even have the best innovation. They didn't even need freedom to do that. They did it because they were able to coordinate and integrate across their economy and their society. Thank you.
Give it up for the two teams. Thank you very much. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the moment of truth. It's a lot of responsibility for you, because you're going to have to decide now which team won. The team in favor of the motion or the team against the motion. So if you believe that democracy is too slow for the AI race, give it up for Team 4. And if you believe that democracy is not too slow for the AI race, give it up for Team Against. I think that was a pretty clear verdict, and I think maybe we should all go home reassured. Or maybe we're all deluded, but in any case, this was great. I want to congratulate you guys for winning this resoundingly. Well done. Maybe the alcohol helped, and I'm sorry if I deprived you, actually. But thank you all very much. This is my favorite debate in Davos. It was definitely my favorite event in Munich so far as well, although AOC last night is kind of a close second. That was fun. But listen, have a great time. Mingle amongst yourselves. I have a few more words from Stephen, and see you around.
Thank you, Catherine. Very briefly, I just want to say thank you to our brave and distinguished debaters. Thank you to our jury members, even for critiquing the motion. You made a very good point, the framing of the motion. And thank you, Catherine, for your fantastic herding of the cats over the last hour. As Catherine mentioned, this is our 175th birthday this year. Our mission that was set out 175 years ago remains central to everything we do at the New York Times, and that is to report, as Catherine said, without fear or favor, to serve the public by seeking the truth and holding power to account through independent, rigorous, and balanced reporting. And I think these debates, in the spirit of listening and respectful argumentation, are, I believe, another manifestation of those values. So I would like to thank the BMW Foundation for their support in hosting us this afternoon. And I would like again to thank our jury members, but particularly you, the audience, for participating and getting into the spirit. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you again to BMW and everybody, and I wish you a very good afternoon. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you for having us do this.
Thank you.
Really fun.
Well done. Thank you.